King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Yes, you heard that correct on Dynamite tonight. Jim Ross didn't stick the landing. He ended up calling the show WWE Dynamite. Hey, and for those of you, as I start off this program tonight, if you're going to go ahead and it's like recess in high school, and you're going to shit all over AEW because he said one thing wrong, okay? You know, but exploding barbed wire match, I got it. But this is where the petty, childish, it is, petty and childish. The picking on of other organizations when the almighty WWE makes mistakes. And although outside the exterior, the company to the business world and to everybody else looks like it's a $1 billion company that is doing well in all cylinders. But we wrestling fans, as finicky as we are, we're all going to complain about how, we're not happy with how things are with the creative product and what's going on with the creative portion of the roster, and the concern that podcasters like myself are going to have with how things are going to be playing out once the live crowds are back. Now, we're already getting a little taste of that. We had WrestleMania. AEW's been having shows at Daly's Place, but now all these organizations, all the wrestling promotions that are out there, I don't know about NWA yet, but as far as I see, everybody else is incorporating crowds once again in their shows coming up. So as Impact Wrestling will have an audience at Skyway Studios, Nashville, Tennessee for the Slammiversary show, and for shows after Slammiversary, they're going to start doing their tapings again with a crowd. So at least you got that going on. And then you're going to move along, and then you're going to go to MLW. They're doing their stuff. 2300 Arena. Ring of Honor, if I'm correct, they are going to have some limited seats now for their Best in the World event coming up. And everybody else is going to start falling in line. We already know the independent shows have come back. So when we look at the whole scope of everything that's coming up right now, going forward, as I record this tonight, the mad dash for WWE to get creative redemption among their fans and among what they need to do for the future of their company and fan reconciliation beyond Thunderdome. Thunderdome has been a setup for them to go ahead and really play autopilot. What a better way to go autopilot when they do not have to worry about the contempt, the disdain, or the vitriol that will come from the fan base. Now they're going to be subjected to it. Now, have they worried about, like we would hope? I like to be proactive myself. If you hope that they're going to do something to get this taken care of, well, no, they're not going to do that yet. We're still waiting. The odds are out. What it looks like is going to happen. And this is regardless of the normal, casual, or the loyal WWE bubble-faced fan base. The podcasters out there that are just so allegiant to WWE among everything else. And God forbid, they're the ones allowed to criticize, but anybody else can't. Okay? It's what happens. It's been like that for years. Last week when my voice went completely out, it's not completely there back, but it's about as good as it gets a week later, given everything. I'm still going through a little bit of bronchitis, but my voice is going to probably be 100% back by next week, which is fine. This is about as good as it's going to get, but it sounds pretty good. A little raspiness. It gives me a little character tonight. But what it comes down to is the company is going to go the easy way to try to go ahead and get the ire of the fans back up, get themselves hyped up and inspired. It's going to SummerSlam is going to feel like WrestleMania season. Apparently, that's really what they're going to try to do. They're going to kind of troll the odds that way. With that said, they're going to bring back part-timers. Their answer to get things back on good footing again. Once they get the crowds back, I mean, we already know that the crowd's coming back and being able to be out there without being behind the video walls and all that shit, which, I mean, we've gotten tired of. I am truly tired of seeing the Thunderdome and not hearing real crowd reaction. NXT getting some of that does help quite a bit, but then again, having the hockey walls in front of them, it does a little bit to take away from me as well. Now, hopefully they're going to get those off. And then all together, we're going to start seeing the crowds. I mean, because AEW is the one that has been giving crowds. They have been. We're getting the most natural pre-pandemic wrestling experience that we have in AEW. They've been giving us that at Daily's Place for a couple of months now. It's much better. And they've at least, that was the one thing I'd give a lot of credit to them. That company's been proactive, forward thinking. They've been trying to push the envelope as to what they're able to do, what they're allowed to do. Tonight, they do a celebration of saying, well, we made it 60 weeks or so of the pandemic, and now it's time to go back on the road. And really put this company back on the spot where they can really go ahead and build an audience, get themselves back on the road, get crowds out there, and really build for themselves. Because this company will be helped a lot by being able to go back out on the road again. Because they need it the most. For WWE, they really just get a chance to reconnect with their fans. Because the fans do want to go back out, regardless of how they feel about things. They're going to be probably a little bit patient or a little bit reconciliatory with the company, because they're going to say, all right, at least we got you back. So we're going to give you some benefit of the doubt. Maybe not much, depending on the crowd who's going to come back. And here's the thing. Of the crowds that do come back coming up now, how, you know, are we going to get an energized audience coming back? We saw that some shows were starting to get sold out and some events were starting to come back, but you've got to ask yourself, I mean, these fans, as fickle as they are they going to want to go ahead and go back out and pay to go and watch these events again when the level that they were watching beforehand has gone so far down? The excitement level has gone so far down. I mean, the last true mark-out moment for a lot of people, for WWE in general, was Edge returning at Royal Rumble. And that's about as good as it's gotten. I mean, there's been other things, but when we look at what's going on, you know, we have always evaluated who's going up and really making some big names for themselves, and who stands out in front of the live crowd, the box office. Who in the current roster is going to really stand out now that's going to get everyone up and at it and excited? Well, it's not your normal cast of characters that we've been watching on Raw and SmackDown every week. We already know the plans keep getting talked about. We are going to see, most likely, Brock Lesnar returning. We know that Edge has come back. John Cena most likely is poised to return back in some way, shape, or form. Who else? But part-timers are going to have to go for the call of duty and come back out and work again. They're going to have to, in order to help this audience get back up. But this company's allowed to do that. They can go back to some part-timers and do things like that. And unfortunately, the audience for WWE, the base audience that watches through thick or thin, or they're kind of laissez-faire and they come in and watch some YouTube clips, or they'll watch some of the social media that's on there, and they'll catch the pay-per-views. You know, whatever that crowd is, that still is pretty loyal to the product, will defend, that will go out on wrestling Twitter and just bash away at anybody else. And maybe in some cases bully or chastise or cajole other fans that might say anything. God forbid. Like, I mean, I don't really make too many comments myself because of where I stand. I'm a fence sitter. When I look at how everybody goes ahead and, when I try to listen to the podcasters and I hear them, they only can talk about WWE. They want to complain about other companies. I feel like it's a bitterness and vitriol that has to be projected towards others. It's a projection of anger and hatred and bitterness because it's really anger, hatred, and bitterness towards the product that they support, that they have put all their time, money, effort, and resources into, their fandom that they put into, and this company is not coming through for them as they want. They are not the company that they grew up on. They're not the company that they've gone out and spent loads of money on tickets and belts and T-shirts for the network, things like that. These fans, give them a little bit of history and a little bit of legacy of what they've watched before. And immediately they'll just go ahead and, like that whole dopamine rush of all that excitement of the past. And then they go ahead and look at current day and they're like, shit. I mean, a lot of fans, either through Twitter or TikTok or Facebook, whatever, when you view their comments based on the fact that they're just so badly want to go back to Attitude Era days. They want to go and even so much now, the CM Punk days. People are going to see those. When I go TikTok and I see the constant amount of clips that are put out there. Let's see another CM Punk pipe bomb. Let's see him go ahead and go after Cena, or Cena going after Roman Reigns in the most current of clips. The fan base, you can definitely tell what they're feeling right now. They don't like talking hopeful, as they always have to with the current product. They don't like doing that. It's pretty clear. So what are they going to do? Let's go back and, regale. Let's go and do like our best of, our top tens, our GOATs, or who's the best of this and that. Who's the person you want to be there in a fight with? All this stuff. And when everybody has their lists, it's only WWE. And why some fans choose to not have an open mind about other product out there, other promotions, I don't know. But there is a thought process that comes off from your typical laissez-faire WWE fan. So AEW, because it's Cody, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, you have to go ahead and shit on this or Jericho and whatever others. You got to go ahead and shit on this company because of what they're trying to do, and that they're supposedly so over the top trying to bash and be the WCW of a counter program. And that these guys, will never forgive what the Elite have done. What Cody and Young Bucks came in, they're just putting themselves over. They're nepotistic. If it's anything Impact, they just can't say Impact because they got to damn well say TNA. Ring of Honor, well, what do you got to say? Ring of Honor's basically got transferred to the NXT. Look at the 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016 roster. It's in NXT. You want Ring of Honor, the 2010s? Look no further. Part of that is also in the main roster of the WWE as well. Other than that, nobody's talking about anything else. Oh, God forbid, let's look at any other promotions. Let's not talk about NWA. Let's not talk about MMW. No. We won't talk about that. And, I don't go the route of everybody else. I'm back to where I was in the attitude I had back in the late 90s, where I have already said AEW is my WCW. And I'm not trying to necessarily put a loyalty to one or the other. When it comes down to buying tickets for shows, I don't do it. Like I will get on my way to go and watch pay-per-views, right? Or anything else. As you already know in this program, I always give more time to WWE because the majority of fans want to hear about that. But in the context from that, I want to be able to go ahead and look at the other promotions. And I want to look at the fact that I want to see wrestling as a whole do better. And to see the improvement and to see all these fans coming back out to watch shows again is wonderful. And there's not enough time to talk about independence. There's not enough time to go and, follow along the independence. But there is a lot going on that people just don't want to talk about. And I'm not a fan of the fan podcast that just cannot let themselves go. They have to track nostalgia. They have to grade what's going on now to where it was back in the day. I can't do that. And I don't look at any of the stars right now, maybe Roman Reigns. I don't see anybody else in the roster on the WWE main roster or any roster in general because, third roster NXT in the same way. I don't see anybody with that level of star power, that real level of star power that a John Cena or a Brock Lesnar or a CM Punk or an Undertaker or a Triple H and Triple H is also another level. Like there's a tier of main event stars. But let's just talk about the main event stars just in the last decade. So I want to bring up CM Punk. John Cena. Roman Reigns, to me, is at that level now. And there is nobody else. There are people that are trailing off significantly. To me, that would be Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. But we already know with those two, with all those stars right there, there's not much else after that. There's nobody else that really stands up to that. And nobody that has the star on their back that's a rising star. That feels like a rising star. And even if they were, they're not getting much help at all from the company. Just look at your two women's champions. I feel like Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair have peaked. At this point, I don't see what else they do to elevate themselves. They've reached the pinnacle. On the women's side, on both ends, I don't see them doing much else. It's, what I'm hearing from Busted Open. It's true. Like, when it comes to Bianca Belair, I enjoyed the chase, but there's nothing else. And there's nobody else that is really ready to take that belt off of her. And it's not time for her to take that belt off. But who do you else have ready to go after Bayley? No, there isn't. When you look at Rhea Ripley, I don't think she's really gotten much off of this title run in the first place. If somebody does need to get that belt taken off of, it's probably her. And there are some stars they could probably use right now that could go and be put up there. And it doesn't need to be Asuka and Charlotte Flair all over again. If Shayna Baszler wasn't caught up in the mess with Alexa Bliss, I don't see why Shayna Baszler couldn't be somebody that takes that belt off of Rhea Ripley. But they're kind of kind of like-minded characters a little bit. Looks and just kind of the feel of the characters. But there's not much else to go with. And then there's only a certain amount of people that are being looked at all. But we don't know what stars are vulnerable to be taken away and which ones are going to be focused on. Because we now know there's a little bit of a disconnect between the corporate end, managing the business, and the creative end, which might not even be aware of who they're going to be working with the next week, let alone the next month. So Nick Khan was one of the first things I wanted to talk about when I started prepping for the show this week, because there's so much there. It looks as if of what can be managed and handled going forward for WWE right now anyway, is what Nick Khan's trying to do. The idea of cutting and the releases and shoring up the house. Taking care of the finances leading up to live shows coming up. things like that. So this weekend, he spoke with the Las Vegas Review Journal, talking about how SummerSlam's coming to Las Vegas, which is his hometown. There's a lot to be said about what he has done and his background. And I think that what was actually said, actually just a couple weeks ago, I was going to bring this up, but I was sick. But I thought this was still important to talk about Nick Khan and really get a little bit of his background. Because the LA Review Journal article did give quite a bit. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, in Las Vegas, early in his career, he was a young attorney, a boxing fan when the sport was in its heyday in Las Vegas. Got to know legendary boxing trainer Freddie Roach, and it would hang around Roach's gym in Hollywood. And what happened was that Roach got into an altercation at a Kinko store, and Khan represented him. Won the case, and then Roach asked Khan to represent one of his young fighters in a contract dispute, Manny Pacquiao. And then the story goes along. And that put Khan on the fast track of the sports business world, would launch a sports and news broadcaster division at an agency, emerging with International Creative Management in 2006, ICM. His list of clients were who's who of the broadcasting world, would move on to Powerhouse Creative Artists Agency in 2012 to become co-head of television. This guy works quick and moved himself up the ladder really quickly, what he was able to do in that amount of time to get into Hollywood and do what he was able to do. So Khan is going to have the show. Allegiant Stadium is going to be one of the first full-scale events in the new stadium. And now, interesting enough, Las Vegas hasn't always been the strongest market for WWE, but Khan says their standard Monday night cards may not be best suited for a strong tourist town. And SummerSlam would get avid pro wrestling fans to travel from around the country. He said that bringing a massive show to Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium certainly fits the mission statement. So it was important to us as a company, quote, and we want to do even more in Vegas. And he thinks it's more possible now with the advent of Allegiant Stadium, believing that along with T-Mobile Arena will make Las Vegas a much more premier sports destination. He talks about Vegas. He says the last 5 to 7 years, you've seen a sort of surge in Las Vegas in the sports space. It was sort of aggravating growing up when people would only associate our town with gambling and dancers. You try to convince them it was so much more than that. Restaurants all came in. Now you see sports and the way it's done in Las Vegas, and he's happy it's happening for the city. Alfred Canuett over at Forbes talked about Nick Khan and the era of 2021 cuts, the releases of the Nick Khan era. And I thought there's a few things he brought up here that were actually, some points well made. So far, we had more releases that came up to the NXT side last week, among other things. We also know that Sanjay Dutt also has stepped away from being an agent in WWE and is now working for AEW, which, given Sanjay Dutt, I'm not surprised he decided to make that move. So spring cleaning, April 15th. Was the first wave. At that point, we had Mickey James, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Bo Dallas, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Wesley Blake, and Samoa Joe. With Samoa Joe returning in some role. Then we had Mark Carrano getting fired for the Mickey James garbage bag incident. And then May 20th, another wave where Velveteen Dream and other NXT stars, Vanessa Bourne, Ezra Judge, Kavita Devi, Alexander Wolf, and Skylar Story were all let go. Then 60 office workers on May 27th, right around Memorial Day, downsizing and combining the television department, advanced media, and WWE studios to create WWE Media, led by Kevin Dunn. Then June 2nd, Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, and others. Along with that, you had Lana Murphy, Ruby Riott, Santana Garrett, and Aleister Black. Crazy amount. Now, by the way, most of these people have not made it onto other programming as of yet. Just keep that in mind. And does it make a difference if they do? I mean, Because the stars, it's not as if they're not talented. But when you look at something's got to be said about with what WWE did and who they decided to go and let go. There are a number of the stars that you have here that might have been pretty popular independent beforehand, but the kind of momentum they had coming into the company was a bit of a different story. Because we weren't really familiar with Billy Kay or Peyton Royce beforehand. And then Tucker, Kalisto, Wesley Blake, and Bo Dallas really were from the company within that developmental system. Only with Samoa Joe being the only difference, and then they brought him back. Then you look at the next part. Mickie James now is at NWA. Now it's going to get to produce an all-women's pay-per-view there, which is great. But then after that, a lot of NXT stars that were developmental, that had just been there for a significant amount of time. What's going to happen with them is that, sure, they might have gotten some TV time, but they're still going to have to find out who they are. I mean, there's a number of NXT stars that are going to be here. They're going to have to go find them. They're going to just kind of rediscover themselves. Because they're not coming with any fanfare at all as they go back out. It's as if they were allowed this chance to go ahead and make some decent money, get some development, see if anything would pan out. And when you look at the overlook of what was being done by Nick Khan, the Performance Center, overall what happened here was what was really getting shored up. Some of the main roster, yeah, you saw some people getting cut, but really it's the Performance Center. And some of the people they've had under contract and had them working that have not panned out. And that Performance Center, they wanted to cut the fat on what was going on in Orlando. That's part of what you also saw. What's really been going on when you look at the overall picture, which Alfred really puts in here. Then June 2nd, Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, and others. And I don't know if Braun Strowman has... If I see him going somewhere else in wrestling, I think there's other things he can go do. I don't see him being in wrestling again. I don't know if he needs to. I mean, obviously he's a big star, but he's also going to claim a big paycheck. He can. But he's such a big paycheck that I don't think anybody's going to go ahead and pony up the kind of money that he is expecting. There's probably going to be some indie events and signings he can do and things like that, but otherwise, no. I don't think that guy's coming back out main eventing anywhere else or being looked at as a main event star that can be brought in some other place. I just don't know. Yeah, Kenise Mobley, following the podcast controversy, she appeared on the Asian Not Asian podcast. And the writer, if you didn't know, and I didn't talk about this last week, but you already know this by now, she was speaking publicly about subjects that WWE did not want her to speak about, according to Dave Meltzer. And Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful went on to note that her appearance had little to nothing to do with her firing, as it was much more of an internal concern. But yeah, she didn't really know Bobby Lashley's full name, and that she really, as she was being hired, did not have to have any real understanding of the wrestling product before she came in. So that, of course, got a lot of fans fired up. I understand why. Cut to Friday. More stars are let go. Fandango, Killian Dane, Tyler Breeze, August Gray, Arya Daivari, Tony Nese, the Bollywood Boys, Sunil and Samir Singh, Marina Shafir, Arturo Ruas, Kurt Stallion, and Ever Rise, the team of Scott Parker and Shane Matthews. Sure, some of these stars might do somewhere well, but they're in the same boat. These were all, I mean, they might have gotten some TV time quite a bit. Tony Nese of this group and the Fandango, Tyler Breeze getting the most of this group, but there's nothing much else to talk about here. They're not going much farther with the fanfare they have. Like Fandango, sure, and Tyler Breeze, sure. They keep them teamed together. You could do something, but I mean, for them to have to go ahead and restart themselves, they're going to just probably be able to work off the characters they've created, what they're able to go and do. Tony Nese, can work off, and, he's going to definitely find work. Everybody else should be able to find work. But it's a lot of developmental talent that if they did not pan out, they're out. That's all there is to it. Me, in the mindset that I would have in terms of business, keeping everything lean and mean makes all the sense in the world. So what means of why Nick Khan's been doing what he's done makes sense to me. And the other part he also, that was being reported, is that, he's not afraid of taking a hit or taking responsibility for the cuts. The story came out over the weekend too, that Nick Khan, according to Fightful Select, he was a decision maker in these releases. And that he had led a meeting earlier in the day on June 25th and decided upon numerous cuts. And the president was specifically willing to take the heat for the releases and wasn't concerned about prior plans, how long talent had been signed, projects, who the superstar was married to, or any current plans. And I've got no problem with that. You need somebody there to go ahead and actually just come in there, and if they're going to go ahead and make changes as a president, when this guy's going to come in and start shoring up things and taking care of business, he's in control of the company. He's got what he wants to do. And that's the best part. It makes all the sense in the world. So, 34 superstars in the last 3 months, 60 plus odd staff members, and consolidation of different divisions. When it comes to the talent development, when it comes to the Performance Center, when it comes to their digital audio and video divisions, all this is shored up. And some releases are going to have to get restarted again for live events. And I imagine what will happen too is that even though they have this 25-day tour coming up, my guess is with WWE, they're going to have to do some changes as the amount of shows they do on the house run. Where maybe some shows might not be TV tapings, but I don't know if they're going to want to do as many shows as they did before, where if Raw was doing a show, SmackDown would be doing a show in another city and doing multiple dates on the, doing multiple shows same day. I don't think they'd be doing that. And then, watching out of what you're going to do when it comes to going on the road overseas, which you can't do yet. I just think that they're going to probably be much more worried about where they're going to go on the road and where they're going to go and perform at. Because I don't see where Nick Khan is going to say, well, let's get the live shows back out. Let's go to our normal venues. And we start seeing some underperforming at some of these venues, then the thing's going to be changed out. Everything's being done smart, I think. And that, for the company itself, it's good management. It's not great because in a corporate sense, look at all these people that are being let go, all these jobs being lost. But how well did they perform? How good were they compared to what this company expects? Because it's not about somebody that's being a good talent and good performer being able to do something. What you have to understand in some cases, and I'm not going to say this for everybody that got let go. I can't say this for Mickey James. I'm not going to say it for Samoa Joe or Aleister Black. But everybody else that was part of these cuts, let's just be honest here. You need to be able to go look at a curve. You need to look at a cut. There has to be a level that WWE is expecting of their stars. And I think that's what's happened now, is that there's this level that needs to be reached. You don't just have to bring in talent. Now you're trying to bring the expectation of what you're supposed to bring. And the expectation of what you're supposed to bring is you're supposed to be able to be box office, and you're supposed to already have all the Ed factor to be as big a star as anybody else this company's ever had. And that's really going over the top here. But I think that's where this company wants to. I think that's where Nick Khan wants to go. the truth is you have to go ahead and really evaluate the rest of this roster. And these moves, I would imagine, would have to make the roster be on its heels right now. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a fear and intimidation because of what's happening here. And that it's not a Vince McMahon or somebody else within that's going to save this person's job. This company now, with Nick Khan, they're under the understanding they're not worried about having to go ahead and worry about other companies taking over. It's a different mindset. What's happening is Nick Khan is bringing the mindset of the 21st century here. How WWE needs to be operating in 2021, Nick Khan is doing that right now. They're operating in 2021 form now. When it comes to the social media, when it comes to their digital division, what they're doing with Peacock, all that they're doing as a sports entertainment company to the level of the NHL or the NBA or any NFL or all these other sports franchises, they are in the talk. They are in the discussion. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. That's what you look at from the business side. So there's a respect right there. And the advertisers respect that. The business world respects and they admire. And they don't look down on the WWE anymore, especially with Nick Khan in charge and the team he has brought on board. That is not a company to be looked down and crapped on anymore. What is going to be looked down on is the product and the way it's still being run within the creative day-to-day. That has to change. But all the other cosmetic changes that were done, all these infrastructure changes that have been done, that is all in play. It's just a matter of time. And I think when we get to the live shows, that's going to really, we're going to see more shakeup within the internal core of WWE in general. The core is going to get shaken up. Now, some fans want to go ahead and start prefacing that this is all being done for a sale. I don't think that is even close to the real truth. I don't expect that at all. What I expect is that Nick Khan is going to go ahead and come in and infiltrate and say, listen, what do we have to do? I mean, he's already injecting a little bit of what he wants to do when it comes to the style of product. Pat McAfee, Jimmy Smith, their successes as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I get that kind of direction. If we're just seeing what the changes that are being made in terms of how SmackDown's presented in some cases because it is Fox and it's a Fox Sports type of product, or if you look at who they brought on board to do, you know, the announcing and to try to be the marketing arms of the company. Michael Cole always will fit, but Michael Cole is not he is not going to be the role model as to which how we will remember what WWE is going to be going forward. They want to go more combat sports. They want to go more of the sports feel, which is fine, but the entertainment aspect, they have to figure that out. And I think that's what's happening now, is that there's going to be a convergence of entertainment with sports. And that the wrestling aspect, WWE is going to change the way people look at wrestling. It will not be Vince McMahon's doing. It'll be whatever Nick Khan's able to go and do. I think wrestling will change as a result of them. But they're always going to be the entertainment product. And there will always be other wrestling companies that will offer professional wrestling. AEW, I think, is going to pick up the slack. They're doing that now. And that's what they've been since the beginning of their organization, since the formation of it. Is picking up the slack of what wrestling fans have wanted to have from WWE that they've been losing in the last decade. Now, there are some stars that, I mean, it doesn't make a difference to me about seeing some of the older stars moving over. It's just, you know, it's something for everybody on AEW. That's what it feels like to me. So for those fans that are diehard WWE fans that are going to go ahead and be critical of AEW all the time, they're going to overlook all the younger stars. And they're only going to focus on who they know and who they can talk about among their own circles. When it comes to Miro or Mark Henry or Big Show or Christian Cage, Chris Jericho, that's who they're going to talk about. Cody Rhodes, that's who they're going to talk about. They're not going to talk about anybody else. They don't. And they might kind of randomly say, oh, this kid might be okay. Adam Page, his kid's okay. Kenny Omega, this kid's okay. Because they're kind of not going to give him the time of day. And they don't want to. And that's okay. Some fans, that's what you're going to expect of them. And with that, I want to go ahead and segue into another story that came out through Bleacher Report. Grading former WWE stars stints in AEW so far. And when you look at the level of people that have had on so far, Kevin Berge, he says right off the bat, start off with Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley. That's really feel like it has been so far. And everyone wants to go and crap on Cody Rhodes. But we know Cody Rhodes this week. Nothing about him. But everybody wants to go ahead and complain. And everybody wants to have their own comments about AEW and what they're doing. And there's just a bitterness on how some people which, that's what was going to happen with the fans anyway. When I started hearing other podcasters right away going after AEW, it's as if, if you say that you're an AEW loyalist and you're like a big fan of them, you're going to get chastised. I mean, the level of vitriol that people have to kind of just give their allegiance or kind of give some kind of loyalty or just give praise to AEW, well, I give it based on performance. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to some of the content I do, especially my pay-per-view reviews, when I do recaps, it's funny how often I do an AEW or an Impact Wrestling recap, and those things just do glorious. And it's not just because I'm marking out for the product. I'm giving my honest opinion on the product, and I like what they're doing. I like the change. It's not stale in my eyes. And what I'm talking about just before with WWE is the staleness is going to go away. I feel that that's going to happen pretty soon. You can interpret it. You can look at what things are going. I feel like Nick Khan's going to take us there. And there's no doubt about it because they're not just going to be able to go ahead and live off of the part-timers forever. Because what part-timers are you going to have after this? I mean, how many more times can you go ahead and call on the part-timers to bail you out for this level of live shows with SummerSlam? How are you going to go and get yourself up for WrestleMania next year and getting things back on the road just like it was before? I mean, you just can't go out on the road globally and get all your fans back who are just happy to go and see you there. But you got to do something. I mean, so that's what you got to keep in mind of. Now, this story from Bleacher Report. He goes in and talks about Brody Lee, Mr. Brody Lee, that the fact that he finally did get kind of a level of where he needed to be when it comes to after being Luke Harper in WWE in the first place, running the Dark Order. That was one of those things that I thought did work well. So Brody Lee, I felt he did well here in AEW. I think his run was short-lived, but it was becoming successful. I really felt that. Serena Deeb, he brings up, and working herself as former NWA champion, working AEW. I'm just glad Serena Deeb's back out there. I'd like to run as NWA champion. I thought she was great. Her and Thunder Rosa can light it up. Then he talks about those that are getting a chance to outshine their runs in WWE. And I'm going to say Miro's right there. He is getting to the level of Rusev that he was. He's not to the point where he was going up against John Cena at WrestleMania, driving in a tank. But Miro is getting to where where he's supposed to be right now. Like, he's redeeming himself. And you could just tell this guy is working his ass off to get back to where you are. And as soon as he got himself past the Kip Sabian stuff, became TNT champion, Miro is becoming a deal. I like what they've been doing with him. He's feeling good right now. And he's getting the kind of push, the kind of treatment that he deserves. This is the Rusev that we should have gotten. But I like this right here. I like Miro. I really do like this character a lot. I like what he's been doing right now. FTR, they're a little bit lost in the shuffle right now when it comes to the Pinnacle, but it's good. And what they have done so far has been good. So they did win the AEW Tag Team Championships, and they've done really good matches so far. I think their talk has not been that bad. But in the Pinnacle, it's just, we haven't gotten to the tag team matches yet because with the Pinnacle versus Inner Circle, they just focus on different things right now. So that is what they haven't done yet. They're doing one thing at a time. So 2 weeks ago, we had Wardlow and Hager in the cage match, which was fantastic. I didn't get a chance to talk about that. I thought it was really good. And then you look at Sammy Guevara and MJF, hell of a match. Those guys could tear it up. And you talk about main eventers. What is there? They're both 24 and 23 years old, respectively, something like that. There's some young guns out there. And not enough said about Jungle Boy against Kenny Omega this past weekend. Jungle Boy, you talk about some stars on the rise. Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Jungle Boy. And then you look at MJF, Sammy Guevara, and I'm going to throw Adam Page in the mix. Adam Page is around for a while, but Adam Page is going to get brought up in there as well. Among other stars they have, just, there's a lot more excitement for me, a lot more momentum that I've talked about with AEW that they have. That's what's coming up. Then you have others with potentially talk about Ty Conti. She's been very good, had really good matches with Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose. And they're just not putting her out there a whole lot, but she's out there and she's been great. I like her better than anything that they did with her in NXT. Bar none. Pac. I like Pac right now in AEW. Just haven't given him a title yet. I think it's just a matter of time. But he hasn't been put out there for a whole lot. It's just kind of in there. When they talk about Trent Beretta, him and Chucky T, I don't expect them to go ahead and reach any higher when it comes to best friends because they've gotten their run in other organizations, through New Japan or Ring of Honor. They're darlings in wrestling, and they're good. And Orange Cassidy is becoming the star that's really being built up as a result of them. It works out. And then when you look at some of the stars they've had on and the veteran stage, seeing Sting back out there and what he's been used for has been very good and very effective. Matt Hardy, in the same vein, now he's being pushed back to help him to go and work in a stable with other stars. The stables need to be worked out a little bit more. Like a Matt Hardy office, we need to see something more out of that. Team Taz. Some of the stables need something to kind of work off of. Because we are a little stable heavy right now. And something's got to be changed up about that. I'm not sure what you can do. I think what's going to happen with Team Taz is we're going to see them kind of working away, and we're going to see some split ups, which will kind of create some changes. And then you look after this, we look at some of the people that are coaches more than full-time performers. They go Dustin Rhodes, Billy Gunn. And then there's others that are saying that are underperforming. You look at Sean Spears or Jake Hager or Lance Archer. I don't see Lance Archer being like that. And I think, sure, his work in New Japan was great, but I don't think he's fallen off. But, it's just, there is a lot of stars that they have on AEW that they are showcasing in rotation. And during the pandemic, it was kind of hard to go and see who was being put out there that was going to find out who could be stood out. But I think you evaluate with the crowds when you take them back onto the road. Then you get to really find out who are the stars that are really bringing people to the shows. Because you're kind of getting an idea who you're getting based on ratings. But when you go out to the live shows and who's going to put their bottom dollar on it, we'll find out. Then there's Matt Sydal, who's been in there, but I don't really put him in, I don't compare him back to his previous career in the WWE because he's been away from them for so long. Plus, he's already done work in Impact. He's already done work in Ring of Honor. I don't look at it that way. But AEW has quite a bit of a roster of stars right now. Now, they're going to have more than enough talent to go ahead and put on a second show. So that Rampage show, whatever they're going to do with that, they have such a heavy mid-card right now. And they have enough main eventers or pseudo-main eventers now that could be used over on Rampage. That third hour is not going to be too bad for them. They got more than enough talent to work off of. So, it's going to be fun to have that show because it's not going to be overkill having that third hour, especially when it's not consecutive to the other shows. You're not doing 3-hour dynamites, things like that. And there's others that we don't know who's going to be doing so far. Andre Idolo, that guy's a star in the making. Let's see what AEW does with him. I want him to do well. If not, he goes back to Mexico, he will excel. But Andrade should do really damn good. I just don't know what you do with him. I just don't know how he's going to work out. But let's see what kind of a plan they got. Then there's Paul White or Mark Henry. But I don't see them doing much more than getting, they might get one more in-ring appearance, things like that, but not much more than that, in my opinion, anyway. So, beyond Thunderdome, we must be able to enjoy to celebrate that we're not going to have the Thunderdome anymore. It's going to be going away. I mean, some portions of the Thunderdome, I guess, the way they're going to have the stage back out there once they get started, they're back out on the road July 16th. AEW goes out next week. So Miami the Night Center, not a big venue, but much of they would have been doing before, they're going back on the road again. Nevertheless. So WrestleVotes reports that the July 9th edition of SmackDown will be the final live show inside the Thunderdome. And that Monday Night Raw, which comes up July 12th, will be taped the week before. And then SmackDown takes place live July 16th in Houston, Texas at the Toyota Center. And the Thunderdome, much like everybody else, it was the best that the company could do to keep themselves looking good throughout. And it tells you a lot about what they were able to go and do with their own production. I mean, the production quality did not suffer at all for them. Now, interesting, I was just reading here now that in part of the tour, the Labor Day episode of Raw will emanate from the FTX Arena in Miami, originally the American Airlines Arena. But FTX, I'm learning about as a new arena name, which I didn't know about. Earlier this month, the company, the Heat, or the American Airlines Arena, officially became FTX Arena, and that's now named for FTX, which is a cryptocurrency exchange. And that is part of a 19-year, $135 million rights agreement. So they're going to have the naming rights for the next 20 years almost. I didn't realize that. FTX Arena in Miami. I got to get used to that. And then WWE is going to go on the road overseas. They're going to go to Newcastle, England, September 19th. And then they will hold the show on September 20th at the O2 Arena in London. Now, I don't know, after they did the 25-city tour, well, I guess that means they're going to just keep going on the road. And that'll be it. Thunderdome will be done. And that's it. Things will go back to where they are, where people were wanting it to be. Impact Wrestling is going to put out tickets, I mentioned that earlier, for their post-Slammiversary taping. So they'll have fans for their show on July 17th. And then July 18th on the Monday after, they'll do post-Slammiversary tapings for Impact Wrestling. So we'll have that to work off of, which will be nice. So overall, we're out of the pandemic in terms of wrestling. Wrestling is now going to get back to some normalcy where we're going to get the fans now responding once again to all that they're watching with wrestling once again. And that's a welcome relief for a fan like myself. It's going to be nice to have that component because AEW has been much more enjoyable to watch with the fans. It's going to be the same now for all these other shows. And I hope that the excitement to go to these shows is going to be out there and very prominent. I really hope so. But now, has anybody made ground on the WWE since this? Since the pandemic, I think AEW has done quite a bit to help themselves out. They have worked their way pretty well to keep themselves, even with the issue of having, over a month of shows off of Wednesday nights, and now they're back on Wednesday nights again. If their ratings start going back up again, wonderful for them. But we have to see what's going to come up with it. But the ratings so far have been very iffy overall with what we've been seeing. Some of the performances have been rough. So now we're able to start seeing Impact Wrestling's ratings and what they're doing. We see what's been going on with AEW Dynamite. And we can see what NXT, Raw, and SmackDown do collectively in terms of their audience and their numbers. As I said, AEW was able to successfully get themselves going forward to get people back out once again to enjoy what's going on. So we don't have ratings for their NXT show this past Tuesday. But since they moved over to their own night now on Tuesday nights, the show's dropped off a little bit. It's actually gone down pretty increasingly. They're now just shuttling around 700,000 viewers regularly. 650,000, 700,000 viewers is their constant right now for that program. And there's nothing on that program right now that's going to bring that up any higher. It's an enjoyable show. I think what they've been doing with the show has been good, but I think there's going to be some staleness. And I think there's some staleness now on some of what they're doing on NXT because it is some of the same stars there. Because you see that Adam Cole and Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly and others are still kind of up there at the top. In some way, shape, or form split up now, no longer as a group. And you have some stars that are being built up that are being used, but you could tell that there's going to be some stars who are going to probably move their way away from NXT at some point, and they're going to be susceptible to be moving over to the main roster. Looks like Bronson Reed's going to be on the way there. And we could see some of those other stars that might be susceptible to go that way down the line. When you look at Karrion Kross, I think Raquel Gonzalez could be looked at that in that scenario. I don't know if Cameron Grimes makes it that way, but I think there's a couple of stars that are going to be looked at to move over to that main roster at some point, which will take away the opportunities that NXT has because they're going to live off the nucleus of what they have of their normal product, where like a Finn Balor or a Samoa Joe or others that are going to have out there, the mainstays. The star power they're going to have for NXT is not going to be always there consistent. So what are they going to do to keep themselves at a certain level? Like WrestleMania level, they get near 850,000 viewers. But after that, where else do they go after that? Like to kind of continue to keep up. They're struggling that part. Now, maybe having a show like the Great American Bash might make a difference. Having those kind of shows, like a takeover style show on TV, will help. But I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do to get to that. Their 18 to 49 demographic has been pretty consistent. That's not bad. But there's a drop off. I mean, they're not getting major drop offs. It's a pretty consistent audience that watches the show Tuesday nights. But they don't have any kind of star power that really draws this show to be more than that. When it comes to Raw and SmackDown, well, Raw continues to hurt. 1.719 million viewers last week, and then I just saw the ratings come up now for them, and Raw this past week was the worst non-holiday audience of the year. And there's nothing right now that they have on their end of the show that's going to draw much more. 1.57 million viewers this past Monday. Whew. Really bad. Really, really bad. 1.57 million viewers. With the way things are going, AEW, I don't see how they're not able to get themselves, if they can make things work out, move themselves back towards the million viewer mark again, because NBA will be done pretty soon. NBA playoffs will be coming into play, so they're not going to have that to work off of. And baseball will still be kind of there, but not a major factor. We won't have NFL yet. And NFL won't be a factor anyway for them at all. So with that said, AEW is going to have some room to grow. They're going to have suffered during the the NBA playoffs, but they're going to move themselves up. So that's going to be helpful for them overall. That's good. Now, next, you have to go and look at SmackDown, which has been kind of consistent. They're still able to go ahead and get themselves close around 2 million viewers for certain matches. They gave away the Hell in a Cell match. And that put the show over 2 million viewers. But when they have to go and gimmick like that, they got a hot shot book to get people to go and watch. You know, they at least they get pulled 2 million viewers there, and that's fine. But both of these shows are not in a good spot. I mean, that live audience right there for those two shows, like, that's not good. And they're struggling right now. They have to figure things out. And I don't know what they do coming up, but they're in a tough spot. So, which is why I look at AEW, it looks like it's holding up. 649,000 viewers for the Saturday night show. And I feel like they're going to be able to get themselves back up to a certain spot. I don't see why they'll get back to 800,000 to over 1 million viewers on a regular basis. I don't see how they are not able to get back to that. But I think the momentum is there for them to do that. And if they're able to go and do that now, getting out of pandemic, they will have been the ones that have succeeded during pandemic. They will have benefited in some way, shape, or form. And the momentum will be on their side, as I've talked about before. But WWE, it's not going to be so much the outcry of the fans is going to make the change here. The unexpected change will be from the corporate end itself. And so I'll tell you what, if you're going to get any kind of commentary, if you want to make your complaints, your griping about WWE known, then damn well go ahead and get yourself emails out to Nick Khan or get to his assistant. You might as well go that end and address your comments to Nick Khan and tell him, hey, you need to get Vince or whoever else on here, take care of this. Because we see you're making changes. Can you make changes to what we watch every week on TV? Because we're not happy. We only want what's best for WWE, but I'm going to put the caveat in. I want what's best for WWE because it'll be best for the wrestling business in general. Oh, by the way, Jim Ross actually made some comment on Twitter about his flub. And he took the gap. He says, yep, I apparently made an untimely error tonight on the show's end. No excuses, and I'm not quitting. So we're going to leave it all there for you folks. Keep it right here to WrestlingIsReal.com for all the latest news commentary right here on the show. We'll do some post shows coming up for next month. Next month, we will have Impact Wrestling Slammiversary and Money in the Bank. Same weekend, July 17th and 18th. Wow. So I'm going to have to go and do shows that day. I'm going to have to probably do, Saturday and Sunday night recaps for those shows. Because Slammiversary, I'm going to do a regular recap for. That's going to be interesting. And if I'm right, I think we still got Ring of Honor Best in the World coming up too, right? Of which that show will be July 11th, week before. So we're going to keep an eye on all this, and we'll see what goes on with that. We do know some matches for that show coming up. We have EC3 will take on Flip Gordon. Brody King will take on Jay Lethal. Josh Woods versus Silas Young in a last man standing match. Mike Bennett versus Jonathan Gresham, who holds the Ring of Honor Pure title. Tony Deppen defends the World TV title versus Dragon Lee. And Bandito versus Roosh for the World title. Maybe at some point I'll catch up on some Ring of Honor because I haven't watched them in a while. And it's kind of tough to watch that without a crowd. Let's just say it like that. All right. Thank you for tolerating my voice and catching the shows you always do. I love all you people that have been catching the show much more. And obviously we're getting more people listening into the program. I'm thankful for all of you to find the show. And please go and spread the word along. Love to hear feedback from you as well. You can do it through the YouTube feed, youtube.com/JBRASCO951, or hit me up on any of the social media that's out there. Now that my voice is back, maybe I'll do a little more commentary on the TikTok. And we will come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.